2, 1. We are live, ladies and gentlemen, in the unscripted, unrehearsed, and unprepared edition of Old Gray Bricks. I am sitting behind the steering wheel for only the second time ever, and I don't really know what I'm doing here. So we don't have the fancy music, and Dana's off feeding four-legged critters. So he'll be along later if you really want to hear the theme music. Maybe you could play it in the middle of the show or something. But
intermission.
It's a very messy Monday.
This is an excessively train-wrecking, messy Monday. So welcome aboard a couple of our original cast members. Mr. Chris here is, I don't know if he's made an offer, but he's house shopping, and he's kind of half moved, and his internet's not reliable. He said he might hop into chat, but he couldn't really host. And then I think Mr. Sandlin's dinner engagement ran long, and so he should be along later. And Dana's got four-legged angry critters that need food. So you're going to have to make do with me.
They're raccoons. They can scavenge for themselves, right?
Exactly, right? I mean, what are they going to do? Crawl up into the, chimney and come down into your kitchen? Well, actually, they might do that. Let's throw it to Steve first, although I don't want to get you in trouble.
Why is that?
Well, because I think you're the only person on this panel who went to Brick World. It just ended, and so I think that's the really big. It's the biggest Lego convention, certainly in North America, maybe in the world. I don't know the world situation, but the rest of us just watched from afar on terms of social media posts and maybe a message here or there from friends. So Meredith, the Pete Best of our Fab Four, went there, and hats off to her. She did get a white brick, which is an honor, as I believe did Mr. Steve. You want to tell us about your?
Well, I was going to end with that.
Nice going, Matt.
It's well okay. Done. So you don't have to big screen me. Please don't. I'd rather see your faces as I'm talking. Brick World it's my second convention ever, and my first one was Brick World, so I've only got Brick World to go off of. It's, I don't know how else to describe it, but like chaotic. It's just, as builders, I think we experience it differently than the public, and even just like the people who go for all 4 days that aren't really like involved in the building, but they're there to like just socialize and whatever. I think, we're building stuff throughout the year, and we're getting emotionally invested into things, and we just experience a little different. So last year was really tough for me personally. It was my first convention ever, and I was naive, and I just didn't know really what to expect. But this year was a lot better for me. I made something that I thought was really great, and I was trying to keep my expectations low because I didn't want to get hurt. And as the convention was going on, I was looking around and getting feedback from people like it happened. It's like my expectations, they rose, and I really thought I was going to get nominated for an award. But I didn't, and that's okay. But my lug, I joined a lug in March, and I think our lug was really strong this year. We had everything we had brought had a variety of things to it. There wasn't really two things that were the same. We had like a big Duplo dollhouse that was pretty impressive, and it wasn't just like we weren't just had a variety of stuff. It was all strong in what we brought too. We had a guy who he's from Illinois, so I don't get to talk with him a whole bunch, but because I'm from Wisconsin, we're a Wisconsin-based lug. He brought like a Harry Potter. It was like a bunch of sets that were all modded, and it was really beautiful. And then I brought what I brought, and then next to me, just going around, we've got a guy who's just like, he's like a mechanical guru. Like the stuff he does is pretty awesome. And then we had a collab, like a medieval collab with a lot of movement that he was involved in. And then we had some good builds from one of the leaders of the lug. He had a really cool one that was one of my favorites. It was a poured cube. Instead of board cube, it was a poured cube. So it was just like he had like think he said like 100, 150, or 150, 160 porgs just on this cube. Pretty awesome. We had his wife, who's another leader. She brought she's into lenticulars, so she brought some lenticulars and some other artwork. And then we had a big D&D map. It was like a big table. It was pretty impressive too. And then we had 3 people collabed on a zoo that was very detailed. So that was our log, and I gotta pull up my phone for this because I don't want to. There's no way I can remember what we did, but we got nominated for quite a few things, and we won quite a few things. So we got nominated for microscale, use of color, medieval building, motion, large group layout, which was they were part of the Wisslug space collab, space base, moon base thing, and inclusion. We won. The guy Dominic, who's the gear guru guy, he won the demolition derby, and we also won for large group layout, which I believe was the space base. We were, and original train, which I think was part of like the monorail. That. So,
I will tell you that the space layout definitely got approval from folks down here in Atlanta who ended up seeing some pictures. They're like, good, someone's keeping the space layout tradition going. So that was welcome for members of this group.
Yeah, and then lastly, I was a little salty when I didn't get nominated because I was looking at what was nominated, and it is what it is. I had a pretty lengthy conversation with someone who's on the committee, and we kind of talked about why I wasn't nominated. They said that I was in consideration, but there were some things that were just like question marks. Like they didn't want to, when they look at a mock, they don't want to have questions whether or not something is a set. And I do have some things in my mock that are heavily modified, but I guess they look like a mock. So that was one of the things, and I don't really want to get into the other stuff. But what was really cool was all of the response that I got, and I did get a white brick.
Woohoo!
I had no idea what they were until yesterday morning, so that was pretty cool. The thing that kind of sucks is whatever's inside of it is broken. So
Aww.
I'm not sure how to put it together. I was talking to Meredith, and she has an idea of what it might be. It's a lot of sausages and no, it's like it's connected with sausages, so it's really fragile, and it broke a couple times. I think I know what it is, and I think I know what the message means, because like each build inside these white bricks are personal and they're one of a kind. So that was really cool to get the approval of my peers, who are really the ones that I care about. I built it for them. So the other cool thing was during World of Lights, I put on my black hoodie and I stood in the front of my build, and I just kind of was like this creepy stalker, fly on the wall guy who could like just listen to what they were saying when I'm not on the other side of the table looking back at them. They're more inclined to just say what they want to say. And it was really cool to hear what they were saying. So that was awesome. That's about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just, you and I chatted a little bit through the Insta, and I had a similar experience last year, and that two years ago was my first time at Brick World, and I was blown away by other people's builds. It's some of the WoW builds. And I left Brick World 2 years ago saying, my ambition is to build a WoW piece, to bring something that will stop people in their tracks and just have them gawk at it, like, holy cow, look at that thing, and I think, it's a healthy thing to be inspired by other people, to want to push yourself to bigger and better or more artistic, or, whatever dimension you're traveling down. And certainly the first year I went to Brick World, I walked away feeling like, I wanted to raise my art to that level. And so I spent half a year putting together the mosaic that I did, recreating the piece that's in the Art Institute. And like you, I got tremendous feedback from people. It being a painting that's in the Chicago Art Institute, people came up and they just gushed, and especially adults, especially adult attenders. The kids were kind of like, yeah, we've seen this, on the school field trip, but the parents were all like, I can't believe you made this out of Lego, and it's a treasure for the city of Chicago, right? So it's one of their touchstones, one of their points of civic pride, this, famous painting. It's in the movie Ferris Bueller. And, it's an iconic piece of pointillism art, but it's also a statement about the city of Chicago. And after a day of just talking to people, I thought, wow, for sure I'm going to get nominated for this piece that I brought. It's wowing people, and it achieved, frankly, the goal I set, which was to get people to just stop and stare. Like, that's what I wanted to accomplish, doing something out of Lego, and it did that. Yeah. And when I didn't get nominated, I was honestly flabbergasted. So, and I too had a long conversation with some people involved with the judging. And as I explained to Steve, I had applied in the life-size replica, which my painting was a life-size replica, and that had been moved into mosaic. But when it got moved into mosaic, the mosaic judges thought it was too much of a reproduction and not original enough, which gets at, I think, the same thing, a bit of the same thing that you bumped up with, doesn't include store elements. And the judges ended up picking not flat mosaics, but three-dimensional mosaics, which to me is almost a different category of, like relief or, something else. But so I wasn't eligible to win mosaic because I made a replica, and they took me out of replica. So I was upset. So I know exactly how, I know exactly how it feels. I feel a lot better because I went to Brick Slopes and won. So, I was like, okay, I finally got a trophy and something, so that felt really nice. And it bothers me a lot less now. But I get it, especially when you get the fan response and it's overwhelmingly positive, you kind of get your hopes up. You got to get your expectations up. But Steve, I'll also make this comment that, you came in 2 years ago to the biggest show. And, in a way, you're walking into it's like, you're a rookie and you go to the Super Bowl or you go to the World Series.
It's like I'm coming right out of high school and I'm right in the pros.
Right. So, that's the other thing is it's a fierce, the quality of the builds is intense, and it's a tough competition. And, I'd encourage you to take that maybe to some other shows. And
I'll be at rodeo.
Yep. Maybe, I'll knock on wood that you get a win at rodeo, because I'll see you there in about 2 weeks. Other people want to comment. I know Magnus, and you've obviously done Brick Fair Virginia many years.
Yeah, I haven't been to Brick World since the first two Brick Worlds back in 2006 and 7 or something like that. I mean, Brick World's a little bigger than the one in Virginia, right? Is it the biggest in the country?
Yeah.
It's I seem to remember that I was perhaps a little bit more focused on hoping I'd win some category or something like that earlier on, and I think eventually I mean at some point I have won something or other a couple of times, but I think once you sort of if maybe you've won at some point or other, you've just been to a lot of these shows, and there's so many people out there who build really well and who are building. It's not just about maybe you didn't win an award and you think your thing is better than whoever maybe won, but it's also you see so much great stuff that deserves recognition, and there just isn't enough recognition to go around, at least in the form of the awards. So
that's the thing with the recognition part of it. It was pretty overwhelming. My table, the space in front of my table, there was no more room to put tokens. It was pretty awesome. My lugs started making fun of me when I was cleaning up. They gave me this huge bag. They're like, "Here, is this big enough?" It was pretty awesome.
Oh wow! I mean, I don't want to sound like a. I really don't want to come this. I don't want this to come across in the wrong way at all. But if there's any way to distance yourself a little bit from from that sense of like I think I'm going to win a thing. At least I deserve to win a thing. Like if you start feeling a little entitled, it's all the more. It's always nicer if like it's a surprise, like you get a nomination or like there was so this big tall castle back here, for example, with the tan castle with the sort of sloped walls. The first time I brought that to Brick Fair, I was hoping that I might get something. It used a sloped wall building technique I hadn't seen anyone else do before. It was big. I knew it was cool. And I was hoping that I might get, in castle or something or other. But and I didn't get I'm pretty sure I didn't get nominated. But I got a lot of people appreciating it. I mean, Matt, I think you were the one who took the picture of me with it that I ended up using as like the main picture of me with the castle. I got it's based on a sort of G.I. Joe castle, and like the guy who makes the G.I. Joe comic saw a picture of it and he got a kick out of it. I had someone from Lego Masters who was just, I caught her sort of staring at it with that sort of, what on earth am I looking at kind of, and so, these things make it worth it. And, it's, I have Brick Fair coming up in August. So that's my big annual event. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm not bringing anything real big, I don't think, but I have some things to show off there too, at least new things actually.
So I know I'm late to the party, and I know I'm late to the conversation, but Magnus, I couldn't agree more with your statement of kind of distancing yourself from the thoughts of building for awards in that aspect. And I think last year was a big eye opener for me. I mean, I know Chris would joke with me for several years at Brick Fair because I was always the bridesmaid. I got nominations all the time. I was even nominated twice in the same category and still didn't come home with anything. So it was almost kind of a running joke. And then
the real question is, which one of your two builds did you vote for when you did?
Oh, it didn't matter, ironically. And so going to Brickworld was like this huge like validation from my peers, and it was overwhelming. It was, I mean, because it was, and anybody who has been to Brick Fair or to any of the Brick Fair, Brickworld, BrickCon, any of those, when you go beyond a small one-day show or a small regional show to a big region show, it is overwhelming the amount of talent that is in a room. Even sitting here this weekend watching all the pictures people showing from Chicago, I was actually sitting here and going, why am I building? Why am I even building? Because there are so many ideas that I thought, oh, it'd be kind of cool to do this, or it'd be kind of cool to do this. I saw people do them and bring them to Brickworld, and I'm like, oh, well, I no longer need to do that. And it becomes you do get in that sense, and you see some people like the Ericksons. If you've ever been to the Ericksons or see them in their studio, they have awards from so many things for so many years for so many things. It's almost like, oh man, that you get a taste of that, and you're like, oh, that'd be cool, that'd be fun, that'd be cool. But last year it was interesting to see because there were so many things that I saw at Brickworld that I was like, why was this not nominated? And it made me reflect on myself of realizing it's impossible. It's impossible for them to give an award to everything that deserves an award, and that's where I think the tokens are the it's the bridge to gap what the awards can't achieve, because we're dealing with art. I mean, and I was in art in high school and college, and it's all subjective. It's all. I mean, I had a very, very pretentious multimedia professor that the question is, what is art, always came up. And it was almost to the point where if you and somebody didn't get along, they would always trash whatever you did, no matter how good it was. And it really kind of gave me that sense of like, wow, I really don't want to be an artist full time, because that's just, you get somebody's, it starts becoming political, and it's just, it's horrible. It's an icky feeling. And so I realized that, and I saw Martin do this first, Brick Snaps, Martin Harris. He's like, I don't want to enter for awards anymore. he's reached a level. He's gotten awards for things, and he's like, I don't want to build for that anymore. And I think it's actually a little bit liberating to realize, hey, stop worrying about the award. Stop worrying about the category. If you win something cool, yeah, I'm not going to say don't turn it down, but there are too many people get the impression, the idea that you've got to build to win something, and it's just not possible. It takes the fun out of it. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, I've got like probably 3 or 4 projects that I want to do. They're not award-worthy projects, but they're projects I want to do, and that's what I'm going to do.
I learned my lesson last year, and this year I didn't build specifically for awards. I just built because my son likes Spider-Man, and I wanted to do it, and I wanted to challenge myself with Technic, and with lighting, and like I said, I tried to keep things low, and like when it came down to it, like I had to enter into pop culture, which is like, what is pop culture? It's like everything. So you know, I was really trying to keep my expectations low going into it. So
I'll also say, as someone who has been like in charge of a theme and had to pick, you know, either, okay, this is the winner, or we are nominating these 4 and then people can vote on those 4. That is not easy to do that either. And there are many considerations that go into, you know, you want to pick, you know, ideally the 4 best things, but maybe you don't want to pick, maybe it's not so important to pick, if of the 4 best things in your mind, 3 of them are very similar, maybe you don't need to pick all 3. Or maybe if someone else is already being nominated in something else, or someone else who everyone knows is great, won a ton of stuff last year, you know, maybe you want to recognize a new builder. Maybe you want to recognize, there's no perfect way to do it, but it's also not necessarily an easy job for whoever had to, you know, nominate whatever, you know.
It's very subjective. It's very subjective. And I know talking to several guys who did judging, or not just judging, but because at Brickworld they do nominations, and the guys who did the nominations, I talked to them, and they spent like 6 hours going through that hall, trying to whittle it down to whatever 4 or 5 or whatever. And it's like, they said it was stressful. They said they didn't want to do it again.
The guy that I talked to this week, he said from like noon to 7, they were trying to figure out the nominations. And from like 7 to 2 in the morning, they were debating, like deliberating. Like, it's just crazy. It's like a 12-hour job.
It is. And
there
is, I mean, there is so, I mean, I will say that even just having gone to Brick Fair, Virginia, you know, I think the first time I went was 2016 as a fan. I can tell you that even the amount of talented builds in my lug blow away what I saw in 2016. And my lug is only a sliver of what you see now at Brickworld and Brick Fair and BrickCon. The amount of amazing things that people are doing. There's too many categories. There's too many skill levels. It's so difficult to wheedle all down to say this guy or these 4 people or these 4 women are the ones who deserve this category, because it's all subjective and it's horrible. But the tokens,
great.
Take 20 tokens, take 50 tokens, take 100 tokens. You want to go around and give a token to every single table? I love it, because that to me is, you know, showing the love, showing the appreciation to your peers, so much more worth it. And I was so excited to see Steve, your table that you showed, Meredith when she showed her table, other people who I saw over the weekend when they showed their tokens. I was like so excited because, you know, it was Susan who I mean, she wasn't the one. I kind of credit her with being like the revival, because she started doing it at Brick Fair, Virginia, and Brickworld, and I picked up on it. Other people picked up on it. That's the perfect thing to go to Brickfest Live and not have to worry about anything. But it seems like the momentum for the tokens is increasing and I don't think it's going to stop. I think it's something that people have really gotten behind.
Or go to Brickfest Live and bring a mock and be the only one there with a mock, so therefore you win it all.
There you go.
See
There
if
you
you
go.
could bring Brickfest Live's rating up from a 1 by bringing your mock.
I really am curious to see how many years it will take before Brickfest Live just implodes.
Well, it's already been going for a lot of years.
It's,
Has it
it's a
not?
good business model. I mean, it wouldn't be going for so long if they have them all over the country. They have them in Europe. They're
Yeah, but
doing
I
something
think that
right.
but I think they're banking on people's stupidity.
Yeah.
And
Parents,
Worked so
parents are
far.
well, I mean,
Parents are
granted,
busy.
this is America, so I mean that could
Well,
go.
They've come to Canada now too. So
but young parents are busy. They're not going to go Google the ratings. They just assume
Right.
one Lego show is like another.
Yeah.
And you have to basically educate each new batch of parents that would come along, like, don't spend your money there. So
Yeah.
it's probably an endless grift, sadly.
Well, because like I was looking, because I want to go out and visit my sister and my niece and them in California, and they live in LA County, and so I was like, you know what, would be kind of cool is if I was able to combine it with a brick convention. Well, Bricks LA
there are none. Yeah.
died during COVID. It ended its 10-year run because COVID killed it. But there's Brickfest Live, and there's Brick Universe, and there's Brick Convention that pop in there, and I'm like, it just kills me. It kills me that an actual a full convention died because of COVID, and it's been replaced by schlock. And so it saddens me. But I don't know. I think is it Brick Universe is the one that's not so bad?
I think.
Is there, or is that or we're all on the same page of the confusion? I think.
I'm always confused.
Yeah,
I know Brickfest Live is the dreadful one that I know about, but I'm not
Yes.
saying others may also not be dreadful. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to presume dreadfulness on something.
Yeah.
If I have
We haven't heard at all from Olden Surly, so I'd like to throw it to him give him a chance to talk.
Oh, please! I'm just in awe. I love listening to the real
Okay.
folks talk over here. I'm just like one of those little voyeurs watching in the background. So I'm hoping one day to get up to your caliber. But I live in I guess you could call it a Lego desert in some ways. Being down here in Southern Maryland, we're 2+ hours away from any major, in fact, any lugs. Period. So there's none of that. I guess you could say local base that you can kind of lean on to maybe become inspired and learn those techniques and just those things that you probably pick up just through osmosis going to the meetings and things like that.
Yeah, you need yourself a lug there, bud. You need yourself a lug.
What's the town again? I might have driven right by you.
Oh gosh, yeah, right down there near Pax River, Maryland, down there where the
Okay.
base is.
Nope, I haven't been to that
way
part.
down there.
I drove down the Delmarva Peninsula.
Even the Amish turn around at some point and go, well, "You're too far from everything." Yeah,
So you are literally in the sticks,
Yes.
which is hard to say on the East Coast, because when I think of the
ironically
sticks,
enough.
I think
Well,
of the Midwest.
And we have
When
to be
I
on a
lived-
nice peninsula where there's no bridges to get to anything easily.
Yeah.
So add an extra hour and a half to anything we want to
Is
do.
it
Wow.
Calvert, Charles County?
Right across the bridge from us, Calvert and St. Mary's and all those good ones out there.
So when I lived in suburban DC, one of the people that I know was getting ready to marry a Navy accountant, and they were going to transfer him to Pax River. He was really good with like making the numbers. He showed the Pentagon how they could save millions of dollars, and they were like, "Okay, we'll keep this guy."
I was going to say, is that how they punished him? They sent him down here.
But yeah, and she joked like, according to the Navy people, they were being punished by sending to Pax River. Like there wasn't even a mall there in the '90s or something. Like
It's still basically the same, yeah. And that's the frustrating part for me. We don't have a bricks and minifigs. We have nothing. Lego stores, 2.5 hours. So I live vicariously through everything. OGB lug. So
I'm
that's
sold.
Well, the
All
only
right.
problem with that is that it would be a virtual lug, because it would have members all over the globe, and it would be hard for us to get together for a physical meeting.
and the building competition would be cut through. I mean,
Yeah. Oh man, cutthroat. Very, very cutthroat.
this
So-
cat bunch here. I can't imagine having to deal with you on that.
Oh, did that just tip over on your mock? What a shame.
Sorry.
Let's just talk about last time. I built this tall space tower, and Giddens goes and adds a little bit extra to his space tower because he was afraid mine would be just a little bit taller.
Oh,
That's how petty it was.
it is, and that is actually a long-standing tradition for Chris. because he has referred to as, I believe, one build technique he refers to as the Sandlin extension, which was just to add on something to make it taller or longer than something Sandlin had built. So yeah, it's been going on for a long, long time. If anything, Matt, you should feel honored to have been included in the arms race or the height race.
The brick race.
Yeah, because I joked with Chris that I was going to add a few more floors to my my monorail tower, and what does he do? No, he goes and adds like 6 more blocks to it. Just,
Starts building with Duplos. That way he gets that
Pretty
extra
much.
height on each row.
yeah.
Really, the only
But-
thing I've been doing this week is I worked on a couple. I'm starting to clean some of my backlog so I can finally invest in this year's so they can go into the backlog. So I've been working on some of the Marvel sets, working on the Carnage and Venom heads and things, just trying to at least justify why there's 1,000 boxes. So when they all fall on me one day, they'll know it was the crazy hoarder of Legos that meant that day. But honestly, though, I guess my biggest question to you all from a mock concept, I mean, do you try to focus on, I guess you could say, more of a initial idea for a very specific piece of it and build around it? Or do you just kind of come up with an overall concept and it just kind of gels as you go? Or is it just, I don't understand how
depends.
I
artistic
think
work.
all of the above is the answer.
I think one big difference is: are you building like a spaceship from your imagination, or are you trying to build like an X-wing that has to look a certain way? Right? Those are both. Right? Are you trying to build like a random castle, or are you trying to build the castle, the Tower of London, or Neuschwanstein? Those are both mocks, but it depends a little on that. I think it depends on some people will do it all digitally and design it all that way, and once they start putting the bricks down, they know where everything's going to go. They may have instructions, and other people really just kind of figure it out as they go. So there's no one right way to do it.
Right. I know with my mock I just did, I really wanted to. I had the idea first, and then I started figuring out how I was going to make my buildings slanted. So once I figured out how to do that, then I just had to do all the buildings, because really the buildings are the main part of my mock, and then it was just the storytelling was I had in mind what the story I wanted, but I needed to make the groundwork first, and then I went into the storytelling after that.
Mine, sometimes it's a shape or color. So when I did my Jetsons Tower, I wanted to build something spacey, kind of inspired by that 1960s version of Future Space where everything's curvy. I didn't want anything to be square. So the towers there's 3, it's like the Nexagon. There's 3 attachment points. All the units have rounded corners. There's no, hard corners. And I wanted to use a color I never built with. So I used dark turquoise. And I wanted to be very glass heavy. So I just kind of had some general ideas. And because I didn't have a specific template, that was a 2.5 year creation. I worked on just building one unit, and I fiddled around with color and shape. And once I got one of the apartment pods done, and then I would go, okay, now I can build 14 more of these and I can scale it up. But figuring out how I would get that roundedness and how I would get the color mix, I experimented with having 3 colors, and I decided, no, I just like the turquoise and white. So for me, it's very, if I don't start from a specific inspiration point that I can reference, it can be very slow and time consuming. I build and then I tear down and then I build and then I I'll tweak it. So to me, it's a very iterative process. I know Dana does some online building, but mine's 100%, physical, tactile, and I see what's in front of me. And so, sometimes I'll build to a point and I'll say, I just need to think about it some more, and I'll set that aside and I'll come back to it. And then above me, I've got the Painted Ladies, and my husband Thomas gave me a book about color theory, and color theory is mostly for watercolor and painting. But I tried to take some inspiration from color theory, thinking about relationships of colors and harmony and contrast. And then I was sort of well, how could I use color theory in architecture? And so I thought, well, Victorians, and I took a real world street, but I used different colors. They don't match exactly. If you go look at the picture, from San Francisco, my colors are quite a bit brighter and different. But just sort of taking that as a point of inspiration, and then I wanted to work on my color. I wanted to push myself in that way. So I would say, like, for me personally, usually I have like a structure in mind, and then I have a technique that I'm trying to add to that. So there's like a design aspect, and then there's like a technical aspect. Like I'm trying to go someplace I maybe haven't gone before, and I try to push those two together. But I'm a slow builder. So, I mean, the other thing is, I have to work through my process, and some people build very quickly and they know exactly what they want. I build and I say, no, that's not what I want. I tear it apart, try it again. So.
Do you tend to be iterative from year to year with your builds, or kind of build upon the last, or is it kind of salt the earth behind me? I'm starting a fresh canvas every time. I mean, is there a trend you see more one than the other? Or?
Yeah,
I wish it was that easy.
I joke that all of my buildings have been built 3 times. So I'm definitely iterative. Like, so what I will typically do is what I call it sketching. So I'll put the windows and the doors and sort of figure out, and I'll do like a very crude facade. It's nothing but the front of the building. It's not pinned, and it doesn't have any sides, and it's very loose. And I'll build the front of the building, and then I'll kind of say, I would move this and this. And then I'll build the front of the building a second time, but now it's got like 4 sides, and now it's going to have a back. And then usually when I get done, I realize it's either not structurally sound enough to put in a car and drive 1,000 miles, or B, I just want to add more doohickeys and bells and whistles. And so I ended up like almost completely disassembling it to add little things here and there. So I swear to God, like every time I build it 3 times, like as much as I try not to do that, it's like I just keep, I wish I'd done this. Well, I could go and tear 1 row of bricks out or add 1 row of bricks around, and that's going to change, the relationship between these lines. And it's frustrating to me that I don't build digitally.
And you have basically given my TED talk about the reasons why I will rough draft digitally. It's a hard transition to go from building physical to building digital, because there's a lot involved. I mean, there's that sensory feel of physically moving the bricks around.
Is that your keep?
But being able to, and Jeff is giving a perfect example.
Jet ski?
He would not be able to have been scratch building that if he didn't already have all the parts. And so now he's got himself a laundry list of the parts to order. Now, granted, I bet you, and Jeff, back me up here or disagree with me, by the time you go to build that, it's only about 95% of how it will actually wind up being, because there are certain things that you won't have been able to account for until you go physical.
This guy's going on the top instead of that center tower.
See, right there. He's already got he's already made a change to his digital build.
But yeah, like you said, that was my laundry list because it was double VIP points. They were ending, and I placed my order 1 minute before midnight last night, and got most of the parts. I like this alone. Like it's scratch built. Scratch built, but it's basically hollow.
Yep.
Don't drop it.
No internal structure to it. It for me was just, I need to know how many parts and what quantity of parts to buy. Like this is about 5,500 parts.
I love that.
I have about 70% of them in stock. So like here.
And Matthew, this is exactly what your stage 1 build would be.
Yeah.
I mean, listening to you say, "Oh, I wish I had done this. Oh, I wish I had done that." I flesh out all those wish I woulda, couldas usually at this stage. Yeah. And by the time I actually get to physical building, unless there's something really weird and random that I didn't account for, it'll probably be 95% of what it started out as digital, because I've already gotten through all that work. And I might spend a week, a month. Hell, I've been working on my pirate mega habitat since February before I finally decided, okay, I think I finally feel comfortable enough to go ahead and order parts for it now. But I didn't have to tear it apart.
In my defense, I will say this. I work with screens all day long, as do you. And I kind of like the fact that I don't use a screen. Like the tactile, physical aspect.
I agree.
I
agree. I actually feel like I probably would have gotten done with the black one sooner if I was building it physical, because I just wasn't feeling the vibe. But it was I actually wound up turning around and building it in gray and then converting it to black, because the black was just killing me. And I'm actually thinking, because some of the things I want to do for red, it's going to be some trees and some arch structure that I'm not used to working with, that I have a feeling I'm going to wind up just having to order the red parts that I think I need just to play with, or try and do some scratch builds in other colors, because I'm just not feeling the idea that I want to build digitally. So I think I'm going to actually have to go old school and pull out the bricks and play with it and try some, tear it apart 2-3 times, just like you're saying. So there are pluses and minuses to both ways of doing it.
So I'd like to ask Van Winnen a question, which is, is this the 30th iteration of your castle? Because
this is just the keep.
Well, I mean, like in terms of how you've added on and expanded and transformed it, it feels like I have personally witnessed a whole bunch of stages.
Oh,
of
yeah.
your castle.
And honestly, this is just the keep topper.
Okay.
Because there's a keep that I rebuilt my whole keep this year. It's like probably 30 bricks high. And now I've added this on top, or now I'm planning to add this on top. This is going back to the got to be higher than the last person. Rich made fun of me at Atlanta BrickCon, or at Atlanta BrickCon, because his towers were higher than mine. So Rich. But yeah, the whole thing with digital building too is if you have a lot of repetition, like you saw me drill down to an individual wall unit, which in itself is 3 different pieces, right? It just allows you to build something quickly. Like I literally put this together in a day. So
your mom's a keep topper.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's my quote for the night. There we go. And color swaps, instantaneous.
Yeah.
You don't have to go digging through stuff and dragging it all out. You do it 1-for-1 or part by color. It really does take a lot of that R&D time and flush it real quick without having to table scrap things.
The color swap, if I ever get drug into building, it'll be the color swap. Because the idea of just being able to click and say, well, what would that look like in dark nougat?
Yeah.
Oh,
well, that's one of my favorite things about doing recolors in general, is that I will take an official set, rebuild it in studio, and then I can recolor it to my heart's content 1,000 times over. When I did my little mechs for landmats for New Hashima, I was like, oh, I'm a kidney candy store. I'm like, what color scheme can I do now? And it just click, 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 click. Inventory list, pull it from my parts, build it. I need to order these parts. Boom, 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 boom. That to me is fun. Is being able to do color variations, and studio makes that so much easier. Shirley, but one of the things I wanted you to touch on, and the concept of mocks in general is difficult. And as and Matthew can attest, as being a lug ambassador, one of our goals is to try and encourage our lug members to build more, to build outside their comfort zone. If they're used to building castles, I want you to build a spaceship. If you're used to building houses, I want you to build flowers, or putting you into a box. You're used to building small. Well, I need you to build big. Or you're used to building big. I want you to build small. You're used to building in all sorts of pastel colors. Well, I want you to only build in black. Anything we can do to stretch and push the creativity and imagination of the lug members is one of our goals. At least for us, it has always been. And so lug challenges are always a great way because those are mock challenges. And so there winds up being a specific end goal. Is it an iron chef or an iron builder where you've got 3 seed parts that you've got to build into something, or is it you got to take a minifigure and you got to create something for that minifigure, or is it 3 colors and you can build whatever you want, but it's got to focus on these 3 colors. So those things often will help dictate where you go with a mock.
Now, for Old and Surly, who doesn't have a handy mock, you could participate in those online things like Friendship Member, or there's different months where people sponsor building challenges, and that's something you could participate no matter where you are. You can do your build, you can share it on Instagram or whatever platform the contest folks are doing, and it can push yourself. And in some ways, sometimes those contests are helpful because they constrict your choices. So some people suffer the paralysis of too many choices.
Yep.
And so actually being forced to travel in a particular direction can be beneficial, or forced to has to be certain size or certain parameters. Maybe that can unlock your creativity. And or other people, they prefer to have that flexibility, but it sort of, really makes them focus on a particular technique that they want to accomplish.
Well, because like what you were saying earlier about, to certain parts direct you in a certain direction. When I was a kid, I had 8 space sets. That's it. So my creativity revolved around the parts that were in those 8 sets. So when Studio came along, or actually LDD came along, and I sat down, I couldn't do it because I now had every piece available to me in every color, and I just wasn't inspired. I didn't have an idea what I wanted to build. It took actually seeing other people's builds, aka Chris and Mark, that inspired me to start building, because that's what got me going, is seeing somebody else. This may actually give you guys a little insight into the fact that I'm always constantly stealing everybody else's ideas to build things. But that's where I get my inspiration from, is from my peers. And Chris is always advocating that iron sharpens iron. We constantly are pushing each other. And that's, I think, where the lug comes in, or just even online community. I would even say like the Bricker family builds, they do like monthly or every other month as little habitat builds, which are great because they're 8x8x8 in size. So they don't require a lot of bricks. They also put you into a box. So you've got to think what you want to do in that amount of space, and creativity happens.
So Surly, when I got back into Lego as an AFOL in 2020, I really wanted to make a Lego city, but I didn't have the brick to do it. So what I did to start out was I took sets like Central Perk, some of the Lego 2 movie sets, and I just turned them into mini modulars. It's and I only used the pieces from those sets. So it might help you to just like have a certain amount of sets so you don't get paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
And just like turn a spaceship into a house.
Oh, there's the one guy there. I forget his Instagram handle, but he takes every set that he gets and he spaceships it. So no matter what the poly bag is or whatever the small set is, he turns it into a spaceship. 90% of them come out like they look like from the Lego movie because they just look ridiculous because he's using the parts from it, but it's a spaceship. And we also used to do a thing where we would do so I assume the fact that you were a child of the 70s and 80s and you saw the back of the box builds.
Yes.
Okay. That is, for me, the quintessential building method. I got this box and it's got these pieces in it, and that's all I get to work with. Now come up with something different. And that's even when I got back in, when I came out of my dark age, I took 3 Star Wars sets, broke them down, and built something only from those parts as an exercise, just to play.
It's a great way to like stretch the way you think about how to put pieces together.
Yeah. There's a guy out there right now. He takes all the Friends sets and then turns them into modulars. Just for the sheer fact of being able to say, hey, this is a Friends set. These are cool design ideas. I'm going to make it into a modular.
Who is this? I don't know if I know this.
Let me go find him again.
Is it Brick Artisan?
I forget. I just recently found him because I got into a conversation with somebody at the Lego store, and they mentioned it, and I was like, I gotta go find this guy.
I'd like to throw this question to Magnus. So, the first and only time I went to Brick Fair, Virginia, Magnus brought the castle that's behind him, which uses slopes and gravity, and honestly, I was flabbergasted, like how he achieved some of those angles. Like I just couldn't, because Lego, it's very square, and to get like gentle slopes and gradual slopes is a challenge, and to have the seams not look chunky is a challenge. And so, Magnus, when you started off, did you know right away you were going to use like leaning pieces and gravity to pull that off, or was that kind of like you were trying to hit a certain silhouette and you were like, well, the only way I'm going to get there is to do something different? How did you get to that technique?
So that castle, I'm going to see if I can get a little closer to that. Let's see.
And you get some mix.
Just
I
don't go
think it
rich,
is- Steve,
go
I think
rich
it
on
is
us.
Brick Artisan, but I think there was another guy too.
Brick Artisan. Okay, I'll look.
Yeah, he's definitely one of them.
So the
Rick
castle
Artisan
here
He did
has these
the
very sorry.
set.
Go ahead, Magnus.
So the castle here has these very slightly sloped walls. So I don't know how easily you can see that, but there's a slight slope to the walls.
It's
And
amazing.
I have wanted to build this specific castle. It's from a G.I. Joe comic for years. And the reason I didn't do it was that I wasn't sure how to do those walls. I knew I wanted to have them slanted. I knew I didn't want to simplify it by just making them straight. And I decided early on I didn't want to just kind of step them up like that. And I thought about I'm not exaggerating when I say I thought about this for years. And I was in the I think I was in the Met in New York City looking at the Egyptian exhibition, and I was looking at the walls there that they have like a mini temple that has the very same sort of slightly sloped walls. And I was looking at them and I was like, how do I do that? How do I do that? And after years and years, I finally figured it out looking at that, how to do it. And once I did that, once I had the idea of how to do that, and basically what I'm doing is I'm building a regular. Imagine that this is the corner of a wall,
Mhm.
right? And you just build it straight up like that. But if you take away this bit and this bit, you can slope it at an angle. And if you do that on all four sides, and then cover up the jagged gaps, then you have that shape. And
That is
when I
something.
first thought about that, I was like, well, what if I had never seen anyone do it before? And I was like, well, I don't know if that's going to work. It seems good in theory, but what if it doesn't work? So what I did was I built, let's see if I can get it without breaking it now. Here we go. I built this, which is also from the G.I. Joe universe, and it is a control tower for a airport, and it uses basically very similar techniques. And it's basically this was my way of trying it out at a much smaller scale. And once this worked, I was like, okay, this is a proof of concept. Now I can have a go at something that is 3 times as wide, 3 times as deep, 3 times as tall, etc., which is what that castle is. So for me, I had this very particular thing I wanted to do, and I wasn't going to start building it until I sort of had the technology, so to speak.
Mhm.
And if I hadn't figured out that technology, I probably still wouldn't have done it yet, unless I came up with a different way to do it. Does that answer the question more or less?
You were just supposed to say you just take this pill, or you were supposed to come up with some easy button. Instead, you said you expect me to be, utilize my brain, encourage creative thinking. What kind of hippie stuff is this going on here?
Well, the thing is,
Hippie
it's easy to get intimidated by all these other amazing things that other people build. But like, I can guarantee you that like the people who looked at that thing that I built and they were blown away by it, they build stuff that I'm blown away by too, because they have taken their creativity and done a thing that I couldn't have come up with, or at least I haven't come up with yet. And
It's only so many hours in the day.
right,
Yeah.
So you do generally get better with time and with experience, but there are people out there who have just been mock building for really a very short amount of time. There are some people who build amazing stuff very quickly.
Mhm.
And you can learn a lot from just looking around the internet, which we couldn't do, before in the before internet times.
Exactly.
So there are
borrowing from the
In
people
the
who
medieval
are-
era.
I mean, look at Kelly Bartlett. She went to a class that Boone held online for kids, and turned around and look at what she does, and it just clicks for her and it works. And
Boom.
she's a spatial builder, and she is figuring out new and creative ways for the brick. And I think in a lot of ways, new builders sometimes have an advantage because they're not constrained by what they've been used to building with. For them, it's a whole new world, and they have the advantage of having it all right there in their fingertips, where a lot of times I won't even think about a new part, or maybe there's an old part that I've forgotten because I never had it. And, then I'll see somebody use it and I'm like, why did I never think about that? Because I just never utilized that part before.
Because you couldn't make it do the thing before, but now with this new part you can. But
right,
your brain's already like, veto, we can't go there in the back of your head. So
exactly.
I'd like to throw it to Steve here and have us talk about how you got to your process. So for your two towers that are going off at the 45-degree angles, was it a conceptual, like was the bigger issue like, what do I want to do? Or when you decided to do the angled towers, how am I going to keep them from falling over? So was it more like, how do I accomplish the vision? Or was it how am I going to do something cool and unusual with these towers?
I had the idea so last year at Brick World, I brought my city along, a convention version of my city. It was 3 base plates by 7. And I wanted to top what I did. Like, how do I take my city to the next level? So originally I had the thought one day at work to put my whole city at a 45-degree angle. And how do I do that? So I guess for me, it was the logistics of the thing. Like, how do I do what I want to do rather than let's do something cool? Or I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like then the idea after that, I had no idea how to do it. Like, Technic was one thing. I just throw it in the bin with all the other Technic, and I push it off in the corner of the room. Like, I had no idea how to do what I wanted to do. It was probably took like a month to figure it out.
Yeah.
I think I even recall having to goad you several times to keep going.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
That's I mean, when I built the Jetsons tower, making my rounded pods, I was comfortable doing that, but then I had to attach them to something, and I had never built any kind of weight bearing, suspended structure out of Technic other than building Lego sets, big Star Wars UCS sets that use a Technic frame. So I had physically done those kinds of connections in building large Star Wars sets, but I'd never ever had to freelance design something. And so, I'm like popping in beams, seeing if things will line up right. And, I definitely made some mistakes, and I probably overbuilt it, frankly. Like, it's very much strong enough to carry a lot of weight. Probably someone who's more sophisticated would say, well, like, yeah, you probably only need half of those Technic pins you popped in there. I'm like popping pins in like every available porthole, it needs to be really stiff, but it sounds like for you, like the big step forward was conceptual. Like, what do I want to do with my city? Let's turn it on an angle. Okay. Well, then how do I get there?
Yes. And Surly, how I started doing that is I took a Technic rally car set. I just took my set and I dumped all the pieces on my desk, and I'm like, okay, does this Technic piece, can this help me out? And I just went through what I had, and I went from there.
And sorry, just touching on your comment earlier, Surly, about not having a lug in your area and living at the point of Maryland there where there's no way to get anywhere and it's 2 hours from everywhere. It sounds like you should just start Surly Lug, man, because you're already surly about it.
Seriously.
I would buy that shirt.
Yeah. Hit the pavement, go to the library, put little notes up looking for other adults who are fans of Lego. That's how people did it before. You gotta reach out some way.
The two best shirts that you could sell is Nut Lug, which is the Northern Utah lug. And I was like, do they know? And they're like, they know. You could be the Surly Lug. Just want to give a shout out quick. Apparently when somebody said single stud connection, Moto's ears perked up because he checked in from Kearney, Nebraska, which there is not much on either side of Kearney, Nebraska. I have been there. So Moto, safe travel. If you're not already at the hotel, safe travel, because I know you're probably not that far from getting back to Denver. So
Oh no, if he's still in Nebraska, he's still got some ways to go. There was something I was going to say, and I totally forgot about it. But did we talk about the fact that Steve got a white brick?
he did.
He did. Okay. Again, props.
That's pretty awesome.
There was something I was going to say for Old and Surly. Oh, I was going to say about you're back to the whole creativity or what sparks this and that. And I recently saw a meme. It was a meme, but it was inspirational. It was somebody reaching out to a friend. I need your help. My idea is beyond my skill level.
Mm.
And somebody commented, there was a comment below that that's pretty much how I got better at everything. Is that you really need to just, you got an idea that you want to build something. It comes to you wherever it comes to you, and you're like, okay, I have no idea how to do that. Time to start figuring it out.
Yep, and find a small group of people that you respect as builders that don't hate
even
your
if you're
guts.
okay with them
and
telling
talk
you it's a crap idea. But yeah.
Human contact, creativity.
Yeah.
I mean, you're asking a lot of impossible things right here.
Maybe you're in the wrong hobby.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, can I ask, if you don't mind me asking, Old and Surly, is there a particular thing you're interested in perhaps designing? Like, are you thinking like buildings or vehicles or micro scale or Technic? Do you have any general sense of what kind of building you think you might like to do?
You know, at this stage of the game, I really don't. Because I'm coming back from a very, 3+ decade dark age, and I'm barely able to follow instructions legibly at this stage of the game. But I see just all the amazing things that you all are doing and doing the full gambit. You're going from the micro scale to these amazing, Cobra mocks from G.I. Joe, and seeing full scale cities. And it's just mind blowing to me that at some point you just sat down, like you were saying, Steve, put a few items out in front of you, dumped out a box and said, how can I make this and this?
I feel the need to do the PSA on this, and I'll use this little snippet as an example. I had a friend of mine who worked at a comic book store. He was a longtime comic book collector. He was a rare book collector, and I asked him one day, I'm like, so do you ever plan to write anything? And he just squarely looked at me and goes, nope. He was a collector. He enjoyed the work, the art, the storytelling. He was a fan, and he loved being a fan, and he loved propagating the fandom to the world, and that was what he enjoyed. Same thing goes for Lego.
Everyone does it different.
Everybody Lego's different.
Yep.
And sometimes people just build sets, and you know what? I love those people because they know where they're at. They know what they enjoy, and they love it no matter what. They have no desire to build a mock. They appreciate and enjoy the mockers of the world, and they love walking around and enjoying the spectacular displays. But when they want to build, they want to tune out, shut off all their cognitive thinking, follow some instructions, feel the bricks, hear the click and the snap, cut their fingers on a fresh new brick. I don't know, whatever it is, but they just enjoy the build. It's like my sister and my half sister, she loves puzzles. I could not stand that. I could not do that. It would drive me nuts because it just doesn't appeal to me, but she loves it. She is a puzzle fanatic. And, they build them and they break them down. They put them in the box and they do whatever. I don't know. Same thing with set builders. Some people just love to build sets, and that's cool. So don't feel pressure.
And the other thing is, I got back into the hobby in like 2004. So if you just got back, and in 2005, I wasn't building amazing things. I was building sets.
Yeah.
And it probably, I can't even remember, but I don't think I did my first mock until I'd been buying and building sets as an adult for probably 6, 7, 8 years. So, and if I could transport myself back in time and say, well, look, you're going to be building this in 10 years, I probably would have been like, no way, because it's a progression, except for Steve, who apparently just gets back in the hobby. It's amazing. But the rest of us, like we need baby steps before we
Everyone has their own pace, and there's no book that says you have to be this far along at this amount of time. Like,
Exactly.
But if you're comparing yourself to Magnus, well, Magnus, we know, thought about this tower for years, probably a decade before he actually, got to the. So, that's my one concern.
I've been building mocks for 43 years since I was about 3 years old. Like, so just,
there's a moment or two,
And Chris and Mark are the same way. And because I know that when I came in out of my dark age and I saw Chris and Mark, and I was like, I just can't fathom, being able to do what they're doing. But the reality is like, they'd been doing it for, Chris never had a dark age. Mark had a very minor hiccup, for a year. And so they've been building for forever. So that's the same with Magnus. It comes down to part availability. I mean, there were things that I had this aspirations of building that it took me years to get the parts together to even be able to build something small that I wanted to build. So it just happens over time, and it depends on what you want to do. I mean, like Mark, like Chris or Matthew was saying, God, who are you guys?
where am I?
If somebody had told me in 2014 that, hey, you're going to be building 5,000 piece modulars in black, I'd have been like, oh, so what you're telling me is I should stop buying sets and just start buying parts? Yes, that would have been the answer I would have told myself. Just start buying parts because you don't need the sets. If anything, now you're going to turn around and start selling all those sets because you want more parts. So it's a different journey for everyone.
Wow.
I think this has been a good show. Like, one of the things I like about talking to other people at conventions, or cutting yourself on the sharp bricks. So there's a whole cutting scene with Lego too, but we weren't going to go there. But
Wow, you're going into the dark underbelly.
yeah,
It's a
Are we
subreddit.
talking like drug cutting? You're
It's
like
a
separating
subreddit.
your bricks with.
I got a big bag of white dots. I got a big. Anyway.
And if you
These
look at
will-
them long enough, they become white eyeballs.
These will cut your fingers. Like, they have this little sharp edge at the bottom.
They do.
Yep.
Yeah, I've drawn blood on these guys before.
Yep.
Unless they're reddish brown, and then they just dark red, and then they just break.
but I want to give a shout out of thanks to a number of people. So I went on what was supposed to be a nice little road trip to a teachers conference, and the road trip was good. And I did go to the New York City flagship store where I got the New York postcard set and the exclusive torso. So that was all fun and well and good. But on the way back, I had some issues with my body chemistry, and I ended up going to the hospital, and they put me in the ICU for 3 days actually to get my blood chemistry right. My blood sugar, I'm diabetic, and it's I talk about that freely. It's not a secret. My glucose never was off. I was always in the target zone, and so I thought, well, I'm doing great, but I wasn't doing great. And my blood chemistry was out of whack, and it was actually pretty dangerous. I could have had a heart attack, they told me. So a number of people across the Lego community, sent me messages and whatnot, and I didn't always get to reply to all those things. So thanks to all the people who left a note or on Facebook or something like that. I appreciate it. But also, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Van Winden. Twice now on his show, I have listened to him as I'm driving home, and so both times I was tired. And he helped me stay awake. So the first time we were coming back from Colorado, and I'm listening to Mr. Van Winden as we're coming right into the city of Atlanta. It's getting dark, and he helped me stay awake. And then
Normally,
the
I
other
put people
time-
to sleep. So
the other
was gonna
time I just got out of the hospital, and so I drove to down near Norfolk, Virginia, and was trying to get past the city. So the next morning I went to face rush hour. So again, I listened to him and David St. Cyr talk about Lego, and I appreciate them being the voice in my car as I'm like trying to get those last few miles. So thanks to you guys.
you're welcome. Thank you.
That maple syrupy voice of his.
No, but the only thing about they were talking about how Brickfest Live is coming to Canada, and
They're going international.
going international, and I'm like, you could have just said "Don't go, people," and then gone to the next segment. But they were just like, "It's outrageous! Look at this stuff!" And they're actually going through and reading some of the like Yahoo reviews from parents who went and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we get it. but the Canadian
The public
audience,
needs to know, man.
they need to know because they, it hasn't come to Canada, and I would consider it a scam. And I said,
Yeah.
I if I had been in the chat, I would have said, maybe Canada has stricter, like fraud laws or something. Maybe they can, get them, hook them on some kind of like, bait and switch plan because they show all the stuff, but then they don't actually.
Are we comparing Brickfest Live to high fructose corn syrup? I think we are. I think we are. I think we're equating the sugary sweetness lie and bad health decision of high fructose corn syrup to Brickfest Live.
Okay, you put it that way.
Empty calorie.
Connect the dots, man. Wake up, sheeple. That's how it starts.
So for people who have inquired, I am feeling much better. I lost 15 pounds, but I don't recommend the ICU unit as the ideal way to lose 15 pounds. So please, everybody, stay out of the hospital. I feel great. In fact, I feel better now than, I haven't actually probably a couple months. So thank you for the inquiries. And I went and played hockey on Sunday, and I was quick because I was 15 pounds lighter. I was like, oh, this is what skinny guys feel like. Okay.
I told you
I'm
there
not skinny.
are better ways to lose weight.
There
There are
are.
much better ways to lose weight.
Weight loss is what put me in the hospital. I was trying to lose weight, but anyways, the medication did not agree with me. So
No, and I told you, dying on us right now, I don't have time for that. So,
well, first of all, if I died, Thomas would be calling you with me like, what am I going to do with all this Lego, Dana? You got
As
to
I
come
said.
over and, like,
so on multiple levels, I don't have time for this.
I don't, I need to add like a whole codicil to my will, like, and I bestowed this set to Magnus, and this set would go to Steve, and this set would go to Jeff.
It would make life much
And
easier.
you wouldn't have our real names. You'd have all of our Instagram handles. And
Yeah.
Well, you're not rid of me yet, people. So don't start counting those. Don't start counting those Ninjago City sets.
I figure that's the only way I'm ever going to get that
Handles.
B wing. So,
All right. Well, let's land this plane. What is it? What does he always say? Build well, be nice,
good to your neighbors.
Play
be
well.
good to your neighbors.
Go out there,
feed
be
the
awesome to each
raccoons,
other.
And don't die.
And
Don't die on the road 1,000 miles from home. There you go.
Good night, everybody. Now can he hit the end stream button with his one hand?